Hey there, I'm Rachel Ehring, and you're listening to the Top Music Piano Podcast. Get inspired as we discuss creative resources, trends in piano pedagogy, ways to grow your income and streamline your studio, and new ways to engage your students each week. If you are a teacher who wants to go beyond the method books to create an innovative studio that fosters lifelong music makers, you've come to the right place. Hello, piano teachers. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here and listening today. This month over at Top Music, we are talking about teaching teenagers, and today we are also adding the tweens into the mix. I had so much fun talking with today's guest, Sonia Poon. We could have talked for hours. You're going to learn so many great tips from Sonia today, particularly about helping this age group prepare for performances. And if you stick around to the end, I'm also going to share another free resource that is available to you for learning more about teaching teenagers. So make sure you listen all the way till the very end. Sonia Poon has been teaching passionately since she started high school. She specializes in intermediate and advanced private piano, and in contrast, also loves to work with her Music Explorers preschool program. At 7 years old, Sonia was accepted under the tutelage of Constance Klein, with whom she completed her RCM examinations, receiving top provincial marks 5 times. During her years of study, she also garnered numerous honors and scholarships at the Kiwanis Musical Festival. She competed in the Canadian Music Competition, where she was a semifinalist. At the University of Alberta, Sonia studied with Marek Jablonski, Alexander Sandler, and Jean-Paul Sevilla. After completing her Bachelor of Music, she went to Paris to continue her studies for piano solo, chamber music, and analysis. In 2001, Sonia founded Forte Music Studio and currently serves as the Vice President of the Alberta Piano Teachers Association. She is also a standing member of the Alberta Registered Music Teachers Association and is a registered Royal Conservatory of Music teacher. She has 3 wonderful children, Sasha, Luke, and Camilla, who play guitar, piano, and violin. When possible, Sonia also loves to play tennis, read, and sleep in. Me too, Sonia. 3 of my favorite things. Here's my interview with Sonia. Hi, Sonia. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. Would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your studio?
Sure. How are you, Rachel? I have been teaching since I was a teenager. I was a reluctant student. My teacher tried to give me students and, I thought, okay, fine, I'll do it. So to be really honest, this is the last thing I thought I was going to do. But things evolve, right? And things change. And I think I've had an established studio since 2001, my life in so many different ways. Like I think it has shaped, who I am. They say you're not supposed to be your work, but I think when you spend so much one-on-one time with different personalities and different people, it really does affect us. Like I think our jobs are always beyond our jobs, right?
Yeah. So tell us a little more specifically, you are teaching in your home studio. Is that correct? And about how many students do you have?
So I have moved into my home studio. I have about 15 students. Sometimes it ranges a little bit more than that. And then I have teachers that work for me. And so I've got a space at the church nearby where they rotate through 7 days a week. And then this year, I've moved my Music Explorers to our local community association, and I'm teaching the group classes there. So it feels a little bit more spread out than I'm used to, but I do think it's going to go well.
Great. So you're teaching the littles all the way up through teenagers. So today we're going to be talking specifically about teaching teens, and also will include tweens in this, and how to help them with performance anxiety and how to kind of relate to this age group. Before we get into that, can you share a little bit about your experience teaching teenagers and one thing that you love about the age group?
Yeah, I was thinking about it this morning, actually. I think all my students this year, outside of 2 adults, are teens and tweens. And I don't know if I've had that before. Yeah. And I think what I love is whether they want to or not. I feel like they kind of wear their heart on their sleeve. I think they work very hard to put on, like, not a mask, but, they kind of put on their brave face to go out into the world. But as their private teachers, we give them this one-on-one space every week, and it's not a parent, right? They're not fighting for your time and your attention with a sibling. And so I think that can become really sacred. It can become a really safe space for them. So really, if you can develop the rapport where they trust you, they really find that space to put themselves into their music. And it doesn't matter if they're beginners or working to, perfect a classical piece, or they just want to play pop. My favorite thing is to watch them get into their music or make that realization of, wow, this works, or wow, this feels amazing, or I really made this piece sound, something beyond what the right notes are.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about how you establish that trust with them in the beginning?
Trial and error. I think, like I said, being one-on-one, that's already in your favor because they probably don't have a lot of that. And one-on-one with an adult. Eye contact is big, and that's hard with some teens. They really kind of downcast or they look away. And being a strong listener, I think, really kind of listening with your ears, but also trying to take in their body language and seeing, are they comfortable when I'm sitting this close? Are they comfortable if I, give them some space? Do they like it when I talk a lot? Do they prefer it when I ask questions? And I think finding that relationship where you can communicate and they feel like they have a say in that, right?
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. Just kind of watching their cues, verbal and nonverbal, and feeding off of those. And then you mentioned a little bit the ups and downs. You said they wear their heart on their sleeve. How do you navigate that if a student walks into a lesson, and do you immediately assess like, oh, this is up or down? And how do you navigate the different emotions and everything that come into play there?
I think we have a bit of an advantage as mothers. I think we do learn to read children, and everyone's so different, right? So in that one-on-one situation, you have that time to sort of give them your undivided attention. And sometimes it doesn't come out in the first few minutes. They come in, you go, hi, how are you? They say good, thanks. They take their stuff out of their bag, they sit down, and sometimes there's a big sigh. Or, maybe you can sort of read that the mood isn't typical. And sometimes it takes getting into a piece, or just like, let's get into it and start playing before things kind of unfold. And maybe you're going to have a lesson where someone needs to just talk for a few minutes. And other times, maybe it's just through your music, you're going to work things out and they don't want to be asked. I think we do have to really try to read them. And, if you were to compare it to, the littles who just kind of like blurt and demand, and they're funny without trying to be. I think, tweens are starting to get self-conscious. Teens are self-conscious. So you could speak about that in a lesson where you have this intimacy, but you could also say, okay, how are we taking that into a performance situation, and why should we bother? And we should, right? It's a whole other aspect, but I think it's so good for them.
Yeah. And we're going to get into performing in just a minute here, but I do have a question about repertoire selection for this age group, because I think there's teachers, they have to strike a balance, or I would like your opinion on this, if you think this is true, between the great repertoire and teaching them the repertoire that they need, but also repertoire that they want to play and connect with. How do you find that balance, or how do you approach repertoire selection with the teens and the tweens?
I have in all caps written balance. So I'm like, oh, she just said it all. No, I think it's so subjective, because this teen is maybe playing hockey 4 times a week. And so how much time are they committing to the instrument? This teen, if piano is their priority, then you could maybe put a little bit more on them and have bigger expectations. And with any student, like, what is the parental support at home? And, those are all such big external factors. But generally, I make deals. I really I'm very honest where I say, I usually start the year off, let's pick something that you were already working on yourself over the summer or from last year, something that's familiar. So let's just get your fingers moving and let's get that started. And on top of that, I'm going to give you something new. So there's old and new, there's familiar and fresh. And usually with the new, I'll give them quite a bit of structure. Like, this is what I want you to have worked on. I don't need perfect. I need you to put some effort into doing it the way I ask you to do it. And so usually I'll give them what I think they could actually do in 2 or 3 days, but they have the whole week to do it. If I know they're a student that needs good deadlines and good boundaries, I often will ask for video assignments. Like, I'll say, okay, today your lesson's on a Monday. By Thursday, I want you to send me a voice recording or a video recording of you playing the first 3 lines of your left hand, like really specific. And I give them a deadline. And so usually if they give it to me in 3 days, they're going to practice at least that much for the rest of the week. Where often, as we have also done, they might not do something for the first few days, and then they scramble something together in the last day, and they probably could have done that and then made it feel easier. So I put a lot of merit and a lot of thought into the words I use. Really, I think choosing vocabulary that connects for them helps. And so the other day I had a new student, a teen boy, who was obviously very nervous to meet me. Like, his hands were shaking, and he had done all this self-learning on his own, like as a YouTube learner. And so, when students come around the other way, where they kind of know this, but they don't know why, and they know how to play this, but they don't know what it's called. So he was playing a scale, and he was coming to the end. And I just really wanted to talk to him about like a good hand posture. But instead of saying, oh, curve your fingers, I was sort of saying, okay, let's finish proud, like finish that last note proud. And his hand just went boom, right? It was great. So I knew that sort of made sense to him. Whereas, another student might need a different word specific to something that they're familiar with.
Yeah, language is so important. And I think especially with these kids in this age group, I want to go back because I think you gave us a little piece of gold in the middle there when you were talking about the video response. I think that's amazing. And it's not going to take much extra effort on your part just to watch the video and say, thank you, great job, whatever, fix this little thing. But it holds them accountable in a way that maybe their parents either don't, or that maybe the parent can't for whatever reason. Are there other ways that you use technology with this age group that helps them make those connections?
Maybe I'm not sure about other ways of technology, but if I can go back to the video and the cell phone, I think on so many levels it does relate to teens because cell phones are an inevitability of their life. And so that is a level where you connect with them. And even the tweens that maybe don't have their own device or their parents are in charge, I'll tell them, I'll write in their book, you or your mom, send me this video. But then when you have this sort of cell phone connection with your older students, you're creating a relationship outside of their parents. And I think they want that empowerment. That's a big word that's been in my head for a while. I think I told you that. And they want that independence. They're really testing boundaries and wanting to know, what can I take charge of? What can I be responsible? And, your students are starting to walk over by themselves. They're not getting a ride anymore. And so by putting the responsibility on them and to do this recording, like you said, like that's really helpful in terms of giving them a boundary and an assignment. And on top of that, the other sort of bonus of that is I feel like it is a baby step in making them feel comfortable performing, because they're not on stage, they're not in front of 50 people. But as you and I know, we've probably tried to do a recording to share, and you're like, oh, I just was fine, and now I press record and I can't do anything. And so that takes some getting used to, right? Like feeling hyper conscious or more conscious of what you're doing. And so by doing that regularly, I think it's like a step towards feeling conscious of people listening. And so I think that's just another bonus to using the phone. And I'm sure I heard somewhere, I have no facts for you, but I'm sure in Europe, I've been told many times people typically take 2 lessons a week. It's very often that they have 2 lessons a week. And I think in North America, it's not realistic with a lot of the hyper scheduling. And so by having a cell phone assignment or a video assignment, you're making them connect with you one other time. And every lesson, I think I say, please don't wait for your lesson. If you have a question, text me. And if I'm teaching, I'll get back to you later. Or tell your mom to send me an email, or screenshot the bar you forgot what we said, and I'll let you know, because typically we could fix that in probably 30 seconds. And then they've waited all week, and some of them don't go past it. So I think making sure they hear over and over again, reach out whenever you want. Reach out whenever you want. And I think they need to hear it a lot. They need the confidence, and they need to know it's a safe thing for me to ask, even though it's not my turn, right?
Yeah, I tell even my adult student, I'm like, reach out if you have a question. I would rather you send me a text and I spend 30 seconds answering than you practice it wrong all week, or just don't practice because you're stuck. I can get you unstuck really quickly, most likely. So I think that's really good. I think you're right. They need to hear it over and over, because, either them or their parents will think, oh, I don't want to bother her. I'm being an inconvenience. I'm not paying for this time. But we want to move them forward and get them unstuck.
The other thing I did this year, which I usually say to them, but this year I was very regular about it. At the very first lesson, I just said, I want to make sure at home you have an amazing pencil at your piano that stays at the piano, and an excellent eraser, like a bit of a stationary nerd, but those things belong to your setup. I want you to make sure you have good lighting that isn't related to sunlight, which is going to be gone, in a month or something, because, the setup is really important. And I've heard lots of teachers talk about this, the books should be ready, making sure music is available and there's not one sheet under the piano and one sheet crammed in a bag somewhere. But having that pencil and eraser, to me, this is a little heavy, but very symbolic, because they can circle something and ask me a question. If they say, oh, I need to ask her about this, and then they come to the lesson and oh, I forgot what I was going to ask you. Just circle it, draw a question mark. Or the fact that we can literally draw a line through an editor's dynamic marking and say, you know what? Let's try something else. Let's make this a crescendo. Or I'll say, add what you think, and then we can decide if we like it. Or maybe you like it, and 3 days later, you've changed your mind and you want to write something else. But if you don't notate it, I don't know what you're thinking. And so I think that gives them some level of creativity with the notes that are given to them. If they're learning a song, I always get them to write the lyrics in. I want them to know where they are in the song. I think it's really, really important. I just think having that pencil there is some autonomy and some empowerment.
Yeah, I love that. And as teachers, we don't think about those little things. And it's also something that we can share with parents who are like, I don't know how to help my student practice. I don't play the piano. Well, just have a pencil and an eraser there. Have good lighting, help them set up their space well. That's a huge piece of the puzzle that parents can help with, no matter what their musical background, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Top Music Pro enables you to be a pro in your own studio, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel and you don't have to make up all the answers yourself. You have support.
I think of Top Music as the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. This site is the whole pot of gold, and there's gold pieces in there that I didn't even know existed.
I am actually teaching a full studio. They're coming online from miles away. So I am certainly thriving.
So what Tim has done is build a global community of piano teachers who are interested, who are engaged. And when you become part of this community, you feel empowered.
My life is different now because I'm not just in an isolated little studio. I have learnt that there are other people out there going through very similar learning curves and sharing these ideas.
I've really gained a lot of skill sets where my teaching is far more creative, far more innovative. I have resources so that I can add to it things that I didn't know.
My life and my business are different now because I have the three things that I really wanted: less stress, more money, and more time.
It's going to be fun. Like, I got excited about being a piano teacher. It's revolutionized everything that I do.
I think I've become a more thoughtful teacher, a more organized teacher. The quality of my teaching has deepened.
I feel like I can do this. I feel a sense of hope. I love the creativity it fosters and the openness to thinking outside the box, and it's energizing.
Joining Top Music really solidified that. Like, no, this is your career and you can make a career out of this. That has really helped me be proud of what I do.
It's made such a tremendous impact on the way I think about teaching. It keeps your mind open when you have so many ideas.
My best win from being on Top Music Pro is just having a lot more peace of mind as a teacher and as a business owner. It just gives me that less amount of hours that I have to do with research and everything.
It's a really good place to spend a few pounds, a few bucks a month. What you get from it far outweighs what you have to pay into it.
My biggest win with Top Music Pro was increased student retention and increased income. I have a lot more confidence in how I'm teaching, and I have the resources that I need when I do have questions.
I probably went from about 35 students to maybe like 65. I ended up doing 3 classes and I had a waiting list.
If I hadn't signed up with Top Music Pro, I probably wouldn't have realized that teaching piano is a real job and you can build your whole career around it.
Let's transition and talk a little bit about performing and preparing teens and tweens for performing. How is it different than preparing the little ones who sometimes don't even think about it? They just go up there because they want to play.
Yeah, I think this is something that's really dear to me because I think I went through it. Everyone had some level of imposter syndrome. I think we all still feel it as professionals, as people navigating life. We just assume everybody else knows better. As much as children feel it, I think young children, maybe they have an innate fear of a new situation, where teens and tweens, a lot of that performance anxiety comes from the levels that they're going through physiologically, developmentally, pressure they feel from their peers that isn't maybe there, but they're putting on themselves. So beyond just the music we're working on with them, they've put all this weight on top of themselves. And so then they make it a bigger thing than it is. And so another word I heard last week that I started using in my lesson was to distill something down. So, to break it down, let's figure out, whether it's a passage. Don't just say, oh, I messed this up. Let's cut everything in half. Was it your right hand or your left hand? Okay, it was my left hand. Was it the note reading or was it the fingering? Was it a hand position or was it you can't read it? If you keep distilling, we figure out what's wrong. Now we can work on it. So when it comes to performing, I think breaking down exactly what it is that's difficult for them. Some of them is maybe, I don't want to see who's in the audience. How many times have you heard, I don't play in front of my family at home. I would rather play for a room full of strangers than play for my brother or sister. Or the opposite, where I can totally play for my family, but I can't play for what feels like a lot of people, right? And so there are so many ways to come at it to help, and there's so many levels that we can help them with. I started insisting that we have these group classes as part of their private lesson experience. And so at the first class, I gave out a form. I have it here, but I'm terrible at reading when I'm talking. But basically, it was kind of an idea of handling performance and listing off, how do you feel when you go up there? I want you to list me 3 things in a positive light. And I want you to list me 3 things in a negatively that really get in your way. And then we talk through the things that you could do months before, the month before, the weeks before, the night before, the morning of, the hour before. Like, that sounds like such a particular breakdown, but the more structure you give them, the more they have to grab onto. That feels safe. Because when you walk on stage and you're like, well, okay, the air is different and the white noise is different and the eyes on me feels different. If they can focus on, oh yeah, I'm supposed to turn and do this. Oh yeah, I'm going to take a deep breath. Oh yeah, this is where I put my music. Oh, and even just the order of like, do I bow first? Or if I have music, do I put that on the piano first? It sounds so silly, but the more you can give them the choice, like you could say, well, it's up to you, but practice both and see what you like. Do you want to bow with your hands in front of you? Do you want to put one hand on the piano? Where do you want to look when you smile? Do you want to look for your mom's face, or do you want to find a blank spot on the back wall? Do you want to introduce yourself, or do you not want to? So for them to have the ownership of making those decisions and practicing those things, then when they go on stage, it's not, oh, my teacher told me I have to do this. It's more like, this is what I choose to do. And then it becomes more personal.
That's so wise, Sonia. You have so much great advice. Thank you. Oh my goodness.
It comes from a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, I have so many follow-up questions. But I really like that, like thinking about all those little things, because when we go on stage, our brain like goes into hyperdrive and we're like, what do I do with my hands? What do I do with my music? Am I supposed to bow? Where's middle C? Like we don't. And so thinking about those things ahead of time and preparing our brains for that instead of just preparing the song and saying, go out and play it, right? That's so important. So talk a little more about how you prepare the students. So you mentioned group classes. So are they practicing performing in the group classes?
Yeah. And so in a perfect world, I would have a lot of group classes, but if I'm really realistic, they're too busy. And so I literally schedule it. I make parents initial it. I make it part of like the curriculum. So it's like, not if you feel like coming, this is instead of your lesson this week, but I wish it was more. I do try to overlap. So like when kids are feeling comfortable, I'll have a student play for the first 5 minutes of the next student. And I'll say, oh, and I'll really try to frame it like, we're just working on these couple of lines, or, you know, it's not about having this perfect ready specimen of music. It's, can I share if it's just one hand of, you know, this page? And so just getting comfortable in front of one person and making a familiar face with the student before you, the student after you. And those are two more people that you recognize when you come to a recital. I do think speaking to teens and tweens in a time frame they understand. So I'll often, back to my phone, show them my monthly calendar. And I'll say, oh, today is whatever, let's say it's October 1st. I'm like, did you know we're only actually 10 lessons from the Christmas recital? And they go, right? Because October doesn't feel like 10 lessons. So I said, let's break it down. I want you to feel really, really ready, you know, at least 4 weeks before. Let's say you get sick. That's another week. Let's say you have a practice and you miss your lesson. That's another week. And if you don't, bonus. But let's break down our piece. So when is it going to be hands together? When is it going to feel memorized comfortably for you? When is it at a tempo you like? When is it all these things? And then you've got that extra month to like play with it. Oh, maybe we want to change this, or maybe, you know, do you want to change the title? Do you want to add an ending? Do you want to tweak the dynamics? Then that last month is more for owning it and embodying it versus like, oh, I'm still trying to learn it the night before. So that's a perfect world, right? So that's what you're trying to show them in weeks. So every time they come for their lesson, I'll say, are we on schedule? If not, we need to do a little more. Like, it's not just let's make this week's assignment. Okay, you're going to do that. Plus, I'm going to put a little bit more on you. And I think we need to have those expectations, or they'll just keep living up to us being too nice.
Yes, that's so good. When you were talking, I was remembering when I was in grad school and I used to, because I had to do a bunch of recitals, I would schedule my recital and put it on my calendar. And then I would do that. I would work backwards. And I'd be like, okay, I want to play in performance class on this date, which means I have to have rehearsals with my partners on this date. And I need to take it into a lesson by this date. And I would back up and I'd be like, oh, I got to start today. Like, I can't wait.
I see all the TikToks on mom math, but one of these really good reel makers needs to do like the teacher math reel. That would be good. Yeah.
They do. Maybe you should do that, Sonia.
No. I'm like this with Instagram. But so I think breaking it down into the weeks, because they understand weeks. I don't know if they're really understanding dates, but they understand a countdown. And I think they're familiar with what they can do in a week. And it's really nice to shock them. And after a good session during their lesson, say, that took us 7 minutes, or that took us 12 minutes. So now you go home and you don't need all week to do that. You can do that and make it easier. You can add a bar. Another phrase I like to use is, this is not all or nothing. This isn't, oh, if I didn't do it all, I'm in trouble, or I didn't do all my dynamics, or I didn't learn the whole thing, hence the other. It's very much, what were you able to do? Like, let's carve out these 3 bars and make them really easy. Can you do them with your eyes closed? Can you do them fast and slow and blah, 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 and not worry about the whole piece being, I just did my right hand. Yeah. And then, so if you add sort of the week breakdown and then the video assignments, I think those are sort of good layers to add. And last year I gave so I'm part of APTA. I don't know if you follow them, Alberta Piano Teachers Association. So we have this wonderful teachers association, and we do a non-competitive festival every year, which is amazing in itself. And last year we added a workshop where I did a presentation on performance jitters. So we did it on the Saturday before the festival started, and we had teens, tweens, young ones, adults, seniors, and parents. It was like a 75-minute talk where I just tried to make sure, as we teachers should, this is not about perfection. This is not about just that one moment you're up there. Like, there are so many other great reasons to do this and benefits. But, right now we're 1 week before. So, at this point, I can't sit here and say to you, oh, you should have done that and you should have done that, right? From this moment, let's break it down. So, you're giving them some ability to say, okay, this is where my piece is at. If it's not where I need it to be, maybe I cut it in half and put a really beautiful ending and play the first half really well. Maybe it's about deciding what my outfit should be, because teens care. Whether they look like they care or don't, they really, really care. Is it comfortable, right? Can I move my arms in it? Can I pedal? Do I like it? They have to like it, right? So I think that's part of it. And what I said to them, just to humanize everything, is whether you're superstitious or not, have something with you. So I said to them, like, I always carry like a lucky rock, like a gem or something in my pocket. So I said, for me, whether it's like putting a pin that I love or having that rock in my pocket. And then I sort of lifted up my pants and said, I like to wear ridiculous socks. I like wearing silly socks. And it's my little secret, because on the outside, I have this formal, presentable, respectable adult outfit on, but underneath I'm wearing, whatever it is, popcorn socks. And so it's just that keeping it light moment for me. Like, this isn't the be all end all of everything. So having something that is your own little thing. So for me, it's a rock. For you, it might be a piece of paper with a note on it. For someone else, it might be like a favorite hair clip, but really personalizing that experience, what you're going to go through, almost like a schedule the night before and the morning of. So let's say your performance is at 1:00, right? So do you want to shower in the morning? Do you want to shower at night? Make sure your clothes are washed and clean. Make sure you have a great breakfast. Make sure you do something physical. So whether that is sports, whether that is taking your dog for a walk, you can't just sit there and hold up all this like overthinking and sit still with it. You just have to go churn it out. And so I think that's really important. Reminding them that a really long, heavy practice the day of is not helpful, right? Like, do lots of slow run-throughs. And so, giving them the breakdown of the week before, these are the things you can do, the night before, the morning of, knowing where the venue is, telling your parents, this is what time we need to leave, arriving with enough time to walk and not run, like finding a place to sit. And part of our workshop was actually getting bodies in the door and saying, look, now you see what the venue is like. So it's not about, oh my gosh, what is the space? Like what does it sound like when my shoes click up the stairs? Like, now you've experienced it, now you've seen it. That's part of the anxiety, right? Of the space. And so what I did sort of at the end of the workshop is had students, if they wanted to, come up and try the piano. And so they could sort of do the walk, turn around, take a look, and like making them go through. I do make sure they really breathe. I tell my students, you're not allowed to touch the keyboard. Like you have to sit, you have to breathe, your hands have to touch your lap, your eyes have to sort of see where they should be. Where you go like this and you're like, start looking with your fingers. That is anxiety inducing. So I think giving them those steps to say, okay, now I do this, and then practicing that many, many times. And at the workshop, every student that came up, I said, we're going to do this 5 times. Like, I might stop you after 3 bars, I might stop you after 1 line, but the whole idea of knowing how to start your piece is half the battle. Because usually, if we have a bad start, we're just already in our own heads. Whereas if you can practice starting, oh, that was too slow, but I can keep going. Or, oh, that was too fast, let me find a place to take a breath. So often in my lesson notes, I'll say, practice starting your piece, 10 times or 5 times every day. So, and don't stop in the same place. Like, try to overlap where it is you stop and start. And that habit of like understanding how to start your piece when you're not in your pajamas, when you don't have like a muffin in your hand, where you actually have all these moments to deal with, it takes practice.
That's really, really good advice, Sonia.
Sorry, I'm not letting you talk.
No, I'm so glad. I'm just soaking it all in because it's so good. But I do want to ask you, a few minutes ago, you mentioned, you used the word share. I think you said that you'll have one student share with the other one. Are there any other kind of reframes around performing or the language that you use with your students? I will often tell my students, like, you're sharing your music. The audience isn't judging you. They're not there to criticize you. They want to hear beautiful music. Can you speak a little to that?
Yeah, I think depending on the student, if I think it would help them, because you get to know them by that time, I actually put a bit of onus on them. And I say, you're modeling for maybe some of the younger students, or maybe you're modeling something for your younger sister, or whatever it is. That's not okay for everybody. Like, some of them that would feel that as extra pressure, but other students, they really take it on and say, okay, this is bigger than me. Like, and I think teens are really me. Like, that is just emotionally, developmentally where they're at, where they're just very tunnel visioned. And so reminding them, like, if your grandmother's coming, she just wants to see you up there and hear you and have this moment. This is more of an experience. It's like you said, it's not about, did you play all the right notes? And so that harks back to when they're playing at their lesson, not note picking. Right? Like, is this the time we're going to check notes? Okay, great. Is this the time we're just going to play through? Great. And knowing that, we can do both, but really it's about, are you conveying how you feel about this piece? That's what we care about. And I think making it bigger and making it beyond that minute that they're up there.
Do you have any advice for after the performance, particularly if a student is beating themselves up and feels like it wasn't their best? How do you relate to them and approach that?
Yeah, I'll even take it back. I will tell parents of nervous students, instead of making that performance or exam or festival, whatever it is, to make it like a stop on the way. So let's say my son had an exam at 11 a.m. I usually will say to him the night before, I'll say, hey, we kind of need to get you out of school for your exam about 9:30. We're going to do a warm up. We'll stop at your exam. And then you tell me where we're going to go for lunch to celebrate. So it's kind of like, here we go. And then there is still life, right? And if the exam went great, it's a celebration. And if it didn't, let's talk about it a little bit, but let's say, we're fine, but look, we still have everything else happening. Let's enjoy an hour away from school and that sort of thing. So same thing with the recital. You can really couch it in is this pit stop? That's the word I was looking for.
Pit stop, not the final destination, right?
Not the final destination. So if that works for people, which I think it really does, it just reframes the idea that this is not, this epic situation. And it's really like, after this, our family's going for dinner. Or after this, we're going to go home and play board games. And really, if your son or daughter is really nervous, don't dress them up to the nines. You're really making them bigger, bigger, bigger. And you can help them pick a favorite outfit that's respectable, but don't overdo it. Don't make them do pictures before, right? Like just really, I don't know. There's so many things pre that help us deal with post. And so after, sometimes there are tears, and I don't think it's about wiping them away and say, oh, don't worry, it was fine. Like, I think you let them feel how they feel and, give them a moment to kind of experience that. And then maybe you should, probably there was a video or a recording or not. You could say, yeah, you might have gotten stuck there, but did you hear how beautiful your ending was? Or I really liked that you got over it and you were still able to do this and this. And you should have seen so-and-so's face when your fingers did this. And, they need to see that was just a moment.
Sonia, this has been so helpful. Do you have any final advice for teachers in teaching tweens and teens or helping them prepare for performances?
I think just finding that connection with them on a very personal level and figuring out what they're going to get out of that performance. So then that's where you make the goal, whether it's about, playing this piece with a friend and making it a duet. Like I have a student who's going to learn a Bruno Mars song with his friend who's going to sing. And that's more important to him than the exam pieces we're working on. So that's fine. I think it's for them about connection. And so ultimately, when they look back in 20 years, that's what they're going to remember, right? Not how hard their piece was.
Thank you, Sonia. You shared so much great advice and wisdom with us today. I really, really appreciate it. I know listeners are going to love this episode. If teachers want to get in contact with you with questions or to learn more about you, where can they find you?
My email address is sonia@fortemusicstudio.com, SONIA. And then I actually had to look up my Instagram. It's at Forte Music Studio Calgary, the worst title ever, but
it's okay. They'll find you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Sonia. It was great chatting with you today.
You too. Always fun.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with Sonia as much as I enjoyed talking with her. If you're looking for more resources for teaching teens, be sure to check out the free Top Music magazine. This month's issue is all about teaching teenagers, and you will find so much valuable information inside. You can download the magazine at topmusic.co/magazine. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will talk with you very soon. I'm Rachel Ehring, and this is the Top Music Piano Podcast.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today.